Hi, Isaac.
Rabbi, good morning. Happy Friday. I'm looking forward to a discussion. The Shabbos is almost here. Blessed be the name of God.
Man. Okay.
Amen. On that note,
So I think
Matthew.
we're going to try to read we're on the third of the
Yeah.
temptation, the
hmm
last temptation in Matthew, though obviously it's out of order. Luke
hmm
flips 3 and 2, and Mark is the minimalist version. So this is going to be our last one, and I think we'll try to read the whole temptation.
So which means we could read all the way
Four,
from 8 to 11, right?
yeah, 4 8,
Yeah.
all 4 verses. Like we're saying like so much, but 4 verses, yeah.
Well, this will be the first, right? This first to be the
Yeah,
first time,
this will be our first
first
time
that
going
we
for. Like I
when
feel
even
like
attempt.
we're almost like speed demons as opposed to a demon.
The Gospel according to Saint Matthew, chapter 4, verse 8 onwards. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these I will give to you if you will fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, be gone, Satan,
Oh, come on,
for
we need some stronger language there. Come on, I want that one again, Isaac. Let's hear it.
then Jesus said to him, be gone, Satan,
That was better. Thank you.
for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve.
Okay,
Then
so
the devil left him, and behold, angels came and were ministering to him.
okay. Yeah, so we may not get to 11, but let's go slowly through each verse. So the first thing that we have to take note is that we have the word again in Matthew starting in 4:8.
Mhm.
And I don't know how you understand the word again, but the way I understand it is it's not meant to be specifically a separate argument. It means that he's coming back to him, maybe on the same kind of plateau. Like I'm not trying to present a fundamentally qualitatively different argument. I'm just still trying to convince you. So I think the word again is almost like the devil isn't willing to give up. And I think that's very meaningful that the devil is continuing. Because when you look at, for example, as I mentioned in Luke, it's flipped. But then it says, for example, in Luke chapter 4 and 4:9, it simply says that then the devil took him to Jerusalem for the third one. So it
Mhm.
shows like while in Luke it shows a succession that this is A, then B, then C, which is kind of the way I've been understanding it. It sounds like in Matthew, there's almost like this exasperation, this exhaustion. The devil's still coming at him. It's happening again. It's gonna keep happening. And we even see this exasperation almost in Jesus' answer, because he's not really called Satan in Matthew. He's called the devil and the tempter. This is the first time where we have this word, Satan,
Is there
accuser.
is
He's
there a
called the
difference?
devil in Matthew 4:1. He's called the tempter in 4:3, and this is the first time he's called Satan.
Is there a difference between devil, Satan, tempter? And they
Uh,
all.
so I think they're definitely, first of all, they're definitely synonymous here. There's no doubt. And when we looked at John and Luke, we'll be able to see about how his attitude is a little bit different. I think it's in John 12:31 and Luke, as we said, 4:6, that there's going to be a different attitude towards what he's trying to accomplish. But I think they're meant to be synonyms here. And if anything, I look at the last one as uh, the exasperated voice, almost like, "What is wrong with you, Satan? Like this is crazy." Like using his first name almost now.
So it sounds like that the devil is persistent, right? He has so persistence, right? Or the gift of
100%.
so that's a gift from. I mean, well, the way we've defined devil as an angelic being, as an arm of God, can only do these things. So from that perspective, I can see how, or I can understand why the devil has this quality of being persistent.
Well, I
This.
think the way to look at this is to compare it to Mark, which we haven't really done, and where he says that that Satan tempted him and he was with wild beasts. But we really know more only once we get to 4:11 in Matthew, and the angels waited on him. We see that in Mark too. So all three temptations are gone. And that's one of the reasons we believe it's from the Q text, because it shows up in Luke and Matthew. But putting the Q philosophy and ideology aside, it's really interesting that persistence and the whole framing out of what the temptations are doesn't exist in Mark. And I think, if anything, it's somewhat more powerful to not know what those questions are. He was alone in the desert with wild beasts for 40 days and 40 nights. And if anything, that's very much how it happened with Moses. We don't really understand the qualitative jumps or paradigm shifts that took place in Moses' relationship to God or the world. And that's how it's in Mark. If anything, it's this amazing growth that takes place, and we don't know anything about it. That mystery itself is part of the grandeur, I think.
Yeah. So when they use the term wild beast? Is it animals which are wild, as in which eat are these flesh-eating animals,
Yeah, sure.
or
Lions. Why not?
or do they mean wild in a different sense, as in wild animals, as in I don't know. I mean, is it so?
It says beasts. It's
Yeah,
not only wild animals, wild beasts.
sorry, wild beast.
Yeah, lions, or I don't know what's in desert.
Okay.
There are different kinds of deer and goats in the desert, but I did not understand this to mean that. I don't know when lions became extinct, but we know from other books in the Bible that lions were floating around Israel from from the story of David and from other
Then
stories.
yeah, then isn't that a miracle in and of itself, right? So we have the story of Daniel. He was
Well,
lions den.
Daniel is hard to place. Also, Daniel is somewhat generally viewed as a late text.
Late. No, but the point is that that he lived with this wild beast and he came out unscathed, he came out unhurt. Isn't that a miracle in and of itself, right? To defend, to physically defend for himself, right? I mean, if physically you're fasting, if physically weak, you have these.
100%. There's no problem saying that. I don't know if it's miraculous, but it's definitely you're supposed to note that there's two ways to look at the word wild beast. One is that he was in danger, and I think that's how you're interpreting. Another way is that he was like alone of nature. There's nothing but the wild beast. But I think either way, it's the same message that there's solitude that was specific.
Okay. Okay, so and the devil took him to a very high mountain. So now we've moved from the holy temple and holy pinnacle, from the holy city and the pinnacle of the temple to a very high mountain. So
And I think we have the metaphor here, right? When we imagine higher gradations of questioning, like if you're taking an SAT, the later questions sometimes will be harder in order to kind of gauge
yeah,
on an intelligence test. It's very cute how not only we have hopefully more meaningful questions from the devil, but we also have higher gradations that he almost like the quality of the question parallels the geographic elevation that Jesus is experiencing, which is a cute. I think it's really cute from a writing perspective to very clearly see. He
yeah.
starts on the desert with a stone 1 inch above the ground looking at it, and he goes to the highest place in Jerusalem, probably, namely the top of the temple. And now no one really knows what it means to be the highest mountain, but let's just say a really high place. The highest mountain, you have this elevation that's very clear in the questioning.
So does the author does the author literally mean at a high mountain, or was it something like, in the sense, did they really physically move to a high mountain and from there they saw?
So
Because
so again,
the
so it depends on if definitely in Catholic belief these literally took place. It means a very high mountain. I think it doesn't. The word mountain doesn't show up in every text. I think sometimes it just says mountain. Sometimes it has a really high space. We'd have to look at the gospel parallels for that. So the point being, from my perspective, it's not about the mountain. It's not about the high place. It's about what you can see from a high place. I actually just saw a guy took a 360 shot from Mount Everest. I don't know if you've ever seen this shot. It's a really amazing shot that you could see like the roundness of the world. You can really see past like a normal, I feel like when you're on a boat on the ocean, you could see a boat go under the horizon. But when you're on top of Everest, you can really see the equivalent of kingdoms, the equivalent of a larger broad thing. And that's what I think it's meant to accomplish. The similar thing took place by Moses. When Moses was told to go up to the mountain before he died, and he's able to see, go look north, south, east, and west, and go see the land of Canaan, you're able to kind of see the geography and also like this symbolic idea of
so
seeing
that
more and deeper on top of a mountain. And
so
I think
that's
the
my
symbolic
question.
idea and the metaphor are meant to exist side by side.
Side by
The
side.
literalism and symbolism.
So you're saying, so let's look at this one by one. Was it a mountain? Was it a mountain nearby which was so high to which they could have gone physically? No.
Absolutely not. There's actually like all things in Israel. If you take a good Christian tour, there's a mountain that is associated with this, and the mountains in Israel, there's mountain range right through the center of Israel that separates the West Bank from Israel proper, and they're not super high in comparison to other mountains.
Okay.
So
So
it's never about, well, when the devil's saying, "I'm gonna let you see kingdoms," like put aside what mountain is. What kingdoms is it talking about? So if you really mean kingdoms, far off nations, there's no sense that any mountain, even Mount Everest, can do that. Mount Everest could do that.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that this temptation was more in the imagination, or it was more in the mental in the mental faculty? When I mean imagination, I don't mean to say it's a fancy. Well, my point is it's a real thing, but it's more about, hey, I'll give you this, or people are intuitive, right? We communicate through the subconscious mind. Like, is that what happened in this
Yeah,
temptation?
there's two examples or two predecessors that I could think that parallel this that I think will help us understand it. One is in Daniel and one is by Jacob. So Daniel is told that he's given two or three examples of the four kingdoms, right? The four kingdoms that are going to come and go. And the idea is that when Daniel sees these four kingdoms before the arrival of the Messiah, if you're able to see how all these come and go, how Media is going to come and go, how Babylon before is going to come and go, how the Greek Seleucid Empire is going to come and go, and according to some later people, how the Roman Empire is going to come and go. You're able to see like how God's ultimate plan, the arc of history play out. So I understand this text as not the physical kingdoms he's seeing, because that's wishy-washy and hard to imagine, that he's able to see the arc of history. Another example that we see is from Jacob. When Jacob lied down on the mountain, when he was going out to Haran, he was able to see the angels go up and down the ladder. And one interpretation in Talmudic text, in the Midrash, is that he's able to see the kingdoms that were come and go. So I think both those two examples from Daniel and from Jacob are both examples of when you are the most important person in history at that point, it's important for God to share his like plan with you. And a lot of times the big empires of the world are the way that God is kind of manifest in the world. The fact that the Roman Empire was so important for a time, or I'll be honest, or that Christianity was able to spread in the way it did, if anything, a lot of people will see the divine hand in that. And if anything, the fact that like Islam is able to spread the way it is today is one of the things that a lot of people see the divine hand in that. So I think in the Jacob and Daniel model, you're able.
We can see the divine hand and everything.
No, but I'm saying it's more than that. I'm saying that it's one thing to see divine hand. It's another thing to say this kingdom will come, this kingdom will go. So I think when we have this Daniel and Jacob model, we're able to make a parallel and say that he was able to show them all the kingdoms of the world, every single thing that was ruling at that time period, and say, here's all their amazing philosophical additions. And
And their glory. What's meant by glory, right? It
the
sounds like
glory is just meant to be like, like I said, the things that they bring to the world, like their philosophical additions, their wealth, their achievements.
see,
That's really
but
what means by
see,
glory.
okay, but that right from the Ecclesiastes point of view, that would be just vain, right? And Jesus would have been well versed in that. I mean,
Ecclesiastes is generally viewed as a very, again, like as we noted, a more nihilist type of text, which doesn't the full, like you can't ask from the philosophy of Ecclesiastes on other books of the Bible, because the philosophy of Ecclesiastes doesn't match the philosophy. So one thing that we talk about, especially if you're a Christian, you'll see that the different philosophies of the Bible, there's different philosophy at different time. As we talk about Genesis has different, we noted has different angelologies at different time periods, and we
so
noticed that different names of God pop up.
yeah.
So it's not a problem that this will contradict anything from Ecclesiastes.
So here's what I'm trying to get towards, right? So the first temptation was convert stones into bread, and Jesus says, "Man shall not live with bread alone, but every word which comes from the mouth of God." And it feels like, and so from that context, like given that response, and now for the devil to quote glory, which by now he should have known that by now the devil should have known that Jesus doesn't care much about glory, that that this is
Well,
a vain thing,
this
right?
question is fundamentally different, right? The first two questions start, if you're the son of God, then A. So that premise is already thrown away. There's no idea that he's trying to disprove that he's the son of God anymore. He's only trying to say that even if you are the son of God, let me try to put you under my monarchy. I'm the devil. I run the sublunar world. I run the physical world, as we see from Revelations and Luke and here. And if I run the physical world, if you're part of my ministry, if you're part of my gang, that'd be better than you being part of God's gang, because I'm the one who runs the sublunar world.
So is that true? Is that true, or is that a false truth? Like when you
Well,
say that,
I think Revelations and Luke have this
okay,
attitude.
Revelation is further down the line. That's not even there. So in this, so, so in this context now, right? When you like based on what he said, that claim which the devil put forth, that I run this world, and if you and if you bow down, I'll give you all this. Is that claim true?
Well, I mean, like if you look at Luke 4:6, and the devil said to him, all this power which I give you and the glory of them, for that is delivered to me and to whoever I will give it. So that, I
Okay.
mean, that's what Luke is definitely saying. So,
So, but okay,
and
but
again,
is
I know you don't want, I know you seem to not want to cite Revelations, But in Revelations, it says in 12:31, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. So we have these two verses that are very, like, at least Luke, I think, is like abundantly clear that he has the power to act this way. And again, yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah.
But is that a truth or is that a lie? Right? People can make these claims which are false claims. My point
I
is,
don't know. I mean, like, you seem
I
to be
mean,
you seem to be bothered by this. Are you bothered by the idea that God would give the manipulations of the physical world into one of his angels, or is it only because
God,
it's
so
true?
this goes back to the discussion. God can do whatever he wants to do. Can he
Okay, it
do?
sounds like you're trying to limit him and put him in your box, Isaac.
No, God can do whatever he wants to do. If God can give, has given that, maybe it's given. But my point is, like, when the devil claims this, is the devil describing, or are his claims an accurate description of reality, or is it just a made-up claims in that moment to say, "Hey, I'll give you this," when even
There's no way we can know. It's a good
okay.
question. You seem to be someone who is okay with God not keeping his promises, but is less but is equally okay
I didn't put it that way. My point was
is
God
equally
can do
so
what he
because
wants.
God is allowed to lie. Of course, the devil, a fortiori, of course, the devil is allowed to lie. So that makes sense. That parallel setup. I guess that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
What did Jesus answer? And he said to him, and these I will give you. Sorry, and he goes on. He said he did two things. Okay. He showed him he went to the top of the mountain, went to the top of the peak, showed him all the things in the world that he could want. Appeared almost like a magic genie, and he said, "I'll give this to you if you fall down and worship me." Classic. We how often do we see this in as like almost like a cliche? If you fall down and worship me once,
Mhm.
then you could do whatever you want. I just need you to show this obsequiousness, this subservience once, and then I give you everything.
So
But if
why
you
did
don't do
he?
that, then
Yeah,
it's over. We see this like in the movie Kingdom of Heaven. We
yeah.
see this, and it's such a common theme that if you just kiss my ring one time and show it, and then the hero says, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." That's
So why did he
it doesn't
use the
matter what you
word?
give me.
Yeah, why did he use this term "fall down"? Like, does "fall down"? You know, we discussed
That's
this
a
earlier.
biblical phrase.
No, we
It's very
did.
normal to say fall down and
I
worship.
see. Okay.
Yeah, again, like I have no problem. So in the olden days, there's different ways to worship. So we mentioned this. So there's
The match I
bowing,
would.
and then the kneeling, then on your knees, and then spread out. So I view this as the highest level of kneeling, the kind that they did in the temple would be to actually lie with your face down, spread out with your hands and feet.
Hmm.
So I just view that as an example of this.
Hmm.
Okay.
Fall down and worship you. So that's part of the same phrase, right?
So,
I
so,
wanted to.
so again, the most important thing though for us is he's not trying to say you're not son of God. He's saying, I agree, you're the son of God. You passed my first two tests. There's no questions anymore. But even if you're a son of God, you could choose to be on the right side of history from the devil's eyes, me and my team. Or you could say that you could worship God who seems to be separate from this world. I'm the guy who runs the world. Okay. What did Jesus answer? Away with you, Satan. Boom. It's almost like in my head, it's so funny. Like I can't even hear the words away with you, Satan, without thinking about all the different ways that we see that people
So
try
okay,
to
can we?
extricate the devil from
Yeah.
people's bodies. When we see that, like, away with you, Satan. I almost can't, like, I feel like I can't even separate my self from that.
Can we just take a step back? So at this point, he's complete. So at this point, he's put forth this question. Um, can we just quickly look at his three questions? His first one was, convert stones into bread. Second one was, fall down, they will hold you. Third one was, I want you to bow down and worship me, right? And so if you were to summarize, right, this is the main focus of each of this. First one was, will he use a physical world? Will he use a physical world, or will he use
To
his
serve himself.
to serve himself? Second one was, will he use a physical world to protect himself, or to, yeah. So what is, and so what is
And
the
not only that, and also to try to put God to the test, right? Will
okay?
he like set up his ministry as one that's almost in a fight with like proving God every second of the way? Like, is this a proof of God? Is this? And the third one,
Oh,
it,
that okay. This goes back to my promise question. Anyway, go ahead. So this third one, what is the focus of this third one?
I mean, it seems to me it's saying like, I recognize you're son of God. that's fine, but I need you to separate yourself from God. Will you view other forces in the world as worthy of worship, or will you only alone see God as that which is worthy of worship?
So in some ways, right, it seems like these temptations are a change in degree, in the sense it keeps moving from sustenance to, from will you use a physical world to will you use a physical world to serve your needs, to will you test God's promises, to will you separate yourself from God to me. And so would that be an accurate, like, do you see a difference in degree between each of these three
Yeah,
temptations?
I personally, I think each one is meant to break down a barrier for, yeah, I'm meant to break down a barrier for Jesus, for how he self understands himself.
Okay.
Okay. So the verse again, we love our verses from Deuteronomy. And the first thing we have to note is that it was unnecessary that all three of these verses come from Deuteronomy. But it's really interesting. This one is
Why do you
probably
say so? Why do you say it's unnecessary?
could have answered. First of all, he didn't have to quote a verse. The fact that he quotes a verse, if anything, is showing his connection to the Bible and the Old Testament.
Yeah,
I think that itself is meaningful. I noted that Deuteronomy is generally viewed more connected
yeah.
to Judea and more connected to the monarchy. But over here, like there's actually changes to the verse than more so than we would have expected. Right. So the verse from where's it from Deuteronomy from Deuteronomy 6:13.
6:13. Mm-hmm.
My favorite number, 6:13. Okay. So 6:13, the verse says, God, your God, tetragrammaton, your God, you shall fear, him
Mm-hmm.
shall you serve, and in his name you shall swear. So that's what the actual verse says. Okay. So over here, you see there's a lot of little changes. I'm sure you notice. Um, it says you will serve God. It says that, but also says you will fear God. It's interesting that it leaves out the fearing, and it says, "And only Him you shall serve," and the "only" is absolutely excluded, and that was an addition, not even in the Septuagint. That was an addition that was purposely put in. It's very cute because what happens if it didn't say the word "only"? If you serve God's servants, are you serving God? I would say 100% yes. Imagine you have a king, and the king sends a tax collector to your door. Should you treat him like trash, or should you treat him like the king, as a representative of the king? So it's really interesting that the Satan could be viewed as a representative of the king and worthy of worship. And what Jesus is saying, he's saying like a very clear monotheistic thing, but it doesn't play out from Deuteronomy because it says you should serve him, you should swear by him, but maybe you could serve and swear by others, like who serve the king. And this is like, if anything, in Judaism viewed as the one of the issues of paganism, that maybe you should serve the sun, maybe you should serve the moon. They were created by God as well, and maybe they're worthy of having that attitude. So over here in the New Testament, in every version, adds the word only him, because that's actually the main point. And it's really interesting that the main point is played out by this additional word.
So this would have been a common theme, right? A common theme, as in like this, like the way the first was man shall not live by bread alone would have been a common theme, a common truth within Deuteronomy and uh, the Jewish tradition. This verse here too, right? You shall worship the Lord your God, and Him only shall you serve. Would you say that this was also common truth, and what Jesus was quoting was not so much this particular verse, but I mean, so
Well,
he
I
was
don't want
quoting
to sound
he was quoting a
heretical.
yeah he was
I don't want
quoting
to
a
sound
verse, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to sound heretical to Christians, but if anything, it's really interesting. This seems to be more of a more rationalist or hyper rationalist attitude towards monotheism, right? That really only God is worthy of worship, and the default of that is that maybe Jesus is not worthy of worship, right? And when the Magi came to worship Jesus, right, we struggled with that. Like, what were they doing? What were they trying to accomplish? And we made up various answers about how you act towards a king, how you act towards whatever. But over here, almost the consequence of worship your God, the Lord, and serve only Him.
Mhm.
The implication is even if you have a Trinity or you have different aspects, the implication is that you shouldn't serve other things. So it's really interesting about, like, I think how this is something that Christians probably should have to struggle with, because if you're willing to serve the Trinity, or if you're willing to serve different aspects, where's the line? Why is it only aspects of God? Why is it not the things that God serves? Why, like, is Mary worthy of worship? Again, I think you have that question. You're like, well, maybe she is. What if God did a miracle in certain place? Is that place? When we talk about different bones hidden inside of different altars of different holy men, I think there's this idea in certain Catholic circles that many things, in addition to God, are worthy of worship,
Okay, but
and it's a question about where the lines start and finish.
yeah, okay, but that's a question further down the line as to how Christianity has understood this. But in the context of this, right, when the early readers heard this, to them this would have made absolute sense, as in God is monotheistic, there is one God and three in one Trinity, the concepts are there. And as you've mentioned, within Judaism, we've called God by different names. So this was, again, in some ways, wasn't this reinforcing the claims of Judaism that there's one God, him and him only shall you serve, and as Moses lays out, you shall love the
Yeah,
Lord your
I
God with
think,
all your heart,
again, I
soul,
think
mind, and strength.
it creates not a monotheism, but a hypo monotheism. That, like,
What's the difference? I'm sorry,
I
I
don't know
missed
if
it.
it's a real term. I mean, maybe I just made it up. But I'm saying, like, you can imagine a monotheism that worships the sun, the moon, and God, because you recognize one is on high, but you recognize the other things, the sun and the moon, or the tax collector serves God.
Yeah, okay. I think this sounds like more of henotheism, right? You believe in one God but live, or henotheism. You believe in one God but act as so there are multiple gods. Or it's kind of a line between
Right. So
pantheism.
I'm not saying a henotheistic model.
Yeah, but it's kind of a line between a pantheistic and a monotheistic. Yeah, there is one
I'm not
God.
trying to. So I'm not going there. I'm saying one God, but maybe other things are worthy of worship, even though they only have one God.
So isn't that the temptation of the devil, right? Because as you said, that if the devil is an arm of God and he's an extension of God, or he can only go where God has allowed him to go, then by that, if we can worship the things of God, then this temptation becomes moot, because then there's nothing wrong with falling down and bowing down to the devil. Um, I'm a bit hesitant to go that way, because again, I think with Christianity, the way we've understood this is, or the way I've understood this is, God is God, and everything we have is a gift from Him. And even if people have these powers of miracle worker and whatnot, like, I don't look at Mary as God. She was a vessel chosen by God, and for all kinds of reasons. And but I can, like, I don't, you know within my tradition, we don't equate her as God, right? She's a chosen vessel. There's something special about her, and we
Yeah, I
you
mean, I'm
know
just saying the idea
recognize her for
that
that.
someone is part of Team God, maybe they're worthy of veneration because they're on the right team.
Yeah, I think that's, there are people who've gone before us, who've sacrificed, who again who were chosen by God, or who live lives that are worthy of respect and honor. And so do we honor them? Yeah, but do we honor them? Do we recognize them? I think we do, but we don't worship them. And it's very fine. I mean, a fine line. I mean, it's a distinction. It's a very broad distinction. So in my tradition in the church, we do celebrate the lives of people who've gone before us. As in, again,
Yeah,
you
well, the
take,
question is, what do you mean by celebrate? Right? That's all I'm saying.
yeah. So
Celebrate is a
yeah,
very unclear verb.
yeah.
So the question is,
We don't pray to them. So when I say that I don't worship them, I don't pray to them. I don't pray that you have to do this.
do you ask them to intercede on your behalf?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we. Yeah, I
I
think
don't
we.
ask nobody to intercede on my behalf.
Because you're the chosen people. I mean, you're the chosen people. You don't have.
Who cares? Well, I'm not praying to you, but can you do this for me? For it just, again, like, it's a big
I
question.
know. Okay, it's a
In
big
Judaism,
question.
you have the same question, because a lot of times that angels are the intermediaries between God and the world, and therefore you maybe need, the mechanics is like you need the angel to bring the prayer up to God. So the question is, like, can you talk to the angels? Can you pray to the angels? So you have the same question. I'm not trying to pick on Christianity. I think Judaism has the same thing. There's a song that we sing every Friday night. It's called Shalom Aleichem,
Hmm.
and it's saying, it's kind of welcoming the Sabbath angels.
Do you want to sing that? If you want to sing that, I'll
Absolutely.
listen.
No, if tonight we'll sing it. But the second one, there's 4 paragraphs,
Mhm.
and one of the paragraphs say, "Blessed be the angels."
Mhm.
It's a famous question, like, are you even allowed to talk about "Blessed be those angels"? Because it almost feels like you're praying to them. And some people I know will skip that paragraph.
I see.
So
Okay.
okay.
Right.
I think we're not going to get to verse 11, as I mentioned. The only thing I just want to finish on is note, and again, like all three verses that we cited from Deuteronomy were never cited in whole, but I find the omissions of this one the most interesting, because where it says worship the Lord your God and serve only Him, it adds the word only, but it omits the beginning of the verse and the end of the verse. The beginning of the verse says, "Fear God," which it's almost like, shouldn't fear God be here? Why is it omitting? And the ending is like, and you should swear in His name, which means like God is the only one that's worthy of. In the old days, they would like stick. You know how we swear on a Bible, so they would swear like, oh, in the name of God on Most High. So if anything, I think the beginning of the verse and the end of the verse really further concretizes Jesus' ideology in that He's trying to teach to or try to respond to the devil. So I'm very surprised that they're completely cut off. I think they could have helped his argument. So I think it's very interesting, especially the fear. Um, just noteworthy that Jesus didn't think that me fearing God is a noteworthy point. And it could be because anything external, swearing or fearing, that doesn't matter. One God you worship. That's the only message. And anything addition, it could be if he added fear, maybe like, well, if the devil could show me fear, maybe then he would be worthy of worship. Maybe if I have a reason to fear him or like that. Okay. Just want to throw that additional point in. Okay, Isaac, anything
Yeah.
else to add?
No, I think that's we've covered a lot today and lots to think about. And so, Rabbi, on that
Wow.
note,